Welcome back to the podcast. Should you do the opening next time, or should I keep opening the pod?
You can do this.
I can do this.
I'm happy.
Welcome back. This is our second episode. We're very excited. We're back. I've got my short sleeve t-shirt wearing boss because I am the boss, believe it or not, of this. Jan loves hearing that. For those watching the video podcast, you'll notice that Jan's drinking what looks like... No, it's not orange juice. It's that... You put that powder into your
Kurkuma.
water. Yeah. I've got something a bit more exciting. I'm holding up a beer to the screen, and you probably can barely see the label because my ring light is on it.
Yeah.
It's an indie beer, and it's guava and kiwi fruit, and it's a sour. So it's very.
Do you get drunk on this?
How many? It's 1.5 standards, but I'll see if I can say that in European. It's 16 ounces, 5% alcohol. So
For a beer, that's a lot.
well, in German beer, that's pretty standard, if I remember
maybe you're
correctly.
right. Yeah, but I hope you don't start talking Finnish now.
Yeah, people getting so drunk that they speak a different language. I actually knew someone who a friend's brother was in a really bad car accident, and they went to the same high school as I did, and they would speak a lot of Chinese, and they learned Chinese in high school, and they went in a car accident, and they were in a coma for a little bit, and when they woke up, they were only speaking Chinese for like a week, and so.
What?
Yeah, it was really strange. I'd have to look up on the details on this, but it was quite interesting seeing this, hearing about this guy who was in this really traumatic, intense car accident.
Definitely.
I believe he's fine now. I think he has a scar or something like that. And I remember seeing him at an AFL football game a few months after the incident, and he seemed fine, and I should actually touch base on them, but that was it's very interesting how you mentioned me getting so drunk that I'll speak Finnish, a language I've never spoken for. I couldn't even tell you a Finnish word even if you asked me to do one.
Me too, and I live in Europe, and I'm a European. I've never been to Finland so far.
How many languages can you speak?
I forgot. Hold on. I speak German, slow, fast, loud, and pretty quiet. So I'm here with 5 languages already.
Gotcha. I thought German only had loud, so I didn't realize it had slow and...
Slow and quick. No, in English and German. That's all.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I had Latin and French in school, but yeah.
Latin? Like, why did I teach Latin in high school? It's such, like...
For Germans, it's good because then you learn the German better than from Latin.
That's true.
Because we have those cases and all that. It comes from over there. And for me, it was quite good to understand German.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Sorry for the abrupt pause. We're limited to how we have to do this over... a Google call and our internet.
And plus my wife is in her home office today, so she's using my Wi-Fi.
Oh, how dare she?
Yeah, someone has to make some money these days.
Oh, okay. Are you not making any?
I'm just wasting time on podcasts.
Oh, don't say that. Come on. You wanted to do this as much as I wanted to do it, surely.
Of course. We will get famous with this one. And then, we get we are just one step so close to the Oscars with this one.
Yeah.
The podcast Oscars. Are there any podcasts festivals?
I did see one in Melbourne, but it's a lot of Melbourne-based podcasts and things like that, and they do really focus on representation. Like they would have Indigenous podcast panel, they would have LGBTQ plus podcast panels and things like that. That was the main focus of it. It wasn't necessarily an award show per se. Maybe they had awards. It didn't come across like that, but it would be worth. Maybe we should come up with our own podcast awards and then nominate.
There you go.
Yeah, that's our innovation.
Let's have this. That's our side project now, to start the Australian European Podcast Festival.
Wow, the international. We just call it international at that point, I think.
Yeah, let's keep it this way. And we have to think about it. But why don't we concentrate on our theme first of all,
theme,
on episode 2?
Episode 2. I wanted to talk about the Berlin Film Festival, and it's funny that you mentioned the Oscars as well, because I got to remember this correctly. You're not a big fan of the Berlin Film Festival, right?
Yeah, because you mean the Berlinale.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's too political. That's my biggest problem.
Yeah. So, for context for me, I went to the film festival for the first time this year, and I had a blast. Like, going to Europe, I actually had my flights booked early, and then on this meeting with the internship third party that arranged it, they go, by the way, the Berlin Film Festival is happening over this next 2 weeks. If you want to stay for that, you should. And I was like, fuck yeah, I want to stay for that. And I saw some really cool films. And then when everyone in the office that we were working at was like, yeah, good luck getting tickets and stuff like that. But something you'll figure out about me pretty quickly, I'm very persistent and vigilant on that type of thing. And I managed to get tickets to all of the things I wanted to see. And I had a blast. And I watched an Australian film over there, which I was really excited to see. It's called Talk to Me, and I suggest everyone else watch it. It's directed by the Raka Raka guys. In fact, they would be dream guests on the podcast if I could have either of them. That would be super cool.
Definitely.
But a lot of these film institution things, Oscars, Berlin, Cannes, people talk about the politics about it a lot. And how do you feel about that?
I mean, the thing is that the Berlinale is a public, or put it this way, is an audience festival. That's why there's a lot of fun going out, during the day. It starts, I don't know, at 9 a.m. You can watch movies for a week, I think, 7 to 10 days. And during, I don't know how many times, I mean, I don't even know how long, but I think all until the end of the day. Each day, it's like for 12 hours you can watch movies. This is quite good, but I think there's always a very strong emphasis on this German love to raise the finger to say, hello, yeah, but, and then this but theme comes in, and then politics come in, and sometimes it's just nice to get entertained, the popcorn entertainment, 90 minutes, I want to leave the world here, and not always see the reality, and then someone points a finger and says, listen, this is, put more salt into the open wound, we always say in German, and I think this becomes sometimes too much.
Right.
There's so much going on for all the other people, for filmmakers. We have the European film market. It's during that time. It's located in the Potsdamer Platz, and it's you can make very good business there. You can find co-producers from all over the world. You can find projects from all over the world. You make very good networking there. Then this is one part. Then the other part is the Young Step Award, I think, is so upcoming young directors, producers, and all these people, they have the chance to have their own little festival inside the festival, which is good, with workshops and all that. I don't want to say anything against it, but sometimes it's just missing for me the easiness. There's always in February in Germany, Berlin, it's like the depression time. If you have bad luck with the weather, whole fucking February is like one gray sky, and then you see a movie about a little kid from Sudan, with one arm and one part face, and it's like really heartbreaking. It's like sometimes it's too much. I think sometimes it's like always
Do you
the
think?
heritage of.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from because the weather, especially, can be quite depressing in Berlin.
Yeah.
Do you think though? Is that a mindset thing or is that just a society thing? Because I would argue that there's a lot of artsy people who would go to the festival, not be thinking about the weather and wanting to see a narrative of someone in Africa with missing an arm, a bent face, succeeding.
Absolutely. I think so. The problem, not the problem, but I think we had it last episode, in Germany, when it's not always, but there's a majority of people who say, okay, I want to watch the 90-minute entertainment, but still I have to learn something. I have to get out of it.
Right, okay. There has to be a message and a moral, yeah.
Exactly. Just watching is a waste of time. That's why when I grew up in the 70s, for example, comic books was like a no-go for the kids.
Wait, they didn't want comic books?
Yeah, we were reading it, but this is like, you don't read. This is no German. This is no smart way of learning how to read for little kids, the Mickey Mouse, And for the kids was like, what the hell? Yes, of course. They're like those bubbles and there are like words in it.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because there's an argument to be made that Spider-Man is one of the greatest protagonists of all time. And it works well in comics because with Superman, you can see he's got a white face. When Batman puts on a mask, he has his white chin is showing. Wonder Woman is also white, but Spider-Man, he puts on a mask that covers his whole face and his whole body. Anyone can be Spider-Man, and you can have that escapism. And he's a character that's often depicted as both a teenager or a young man, someone who's growing up. And so there's problems with growing up there. And so I could argue just from that alone that he's a really good character for kids to read, especially for a sense of escapism. I love comics, so I'm glad we have that in common. Do you have a favorite comic book character?
No, but let me think. No. I was not really like, I never really collected any comic books, but here, what's his name? I forgot this. I have him.
I'm going to show you two that I have just in my drawer right next to me. And both of these have been adapted into film.
You're so prepared.
I just remembered that I had these. My other comics are upstairs. I'm holding it up here. This is Old Man Logan, a Wolverine story. This is what got adapted into Logan very loosely. This is very good because Logan kind of has a sub-theme of, hey, are you sick of superhero films? We are too. And this comic book has that very much the same sentiment. But more famous, and what a lot of people know, and a very, very famous cover is the Infinity Gauntlet. This is the comic book series where Thanos snaps his fingers and kills half the universe. And I love this design. Again, for the audio listeners, sorry about this, but he holds the gauntlet right below his chin, and all the lights from the Infinity Stones go in different directions. And within the intersections, you get all these different heroes. It's just super creative and cool. And you've got Mephisto and Death at the top, and these are great. And
I mean, for me now, I remember I bought the Sin City art book cover. I don't see them, strangely.
Sin City, nice.
Yes, and I bought them because of watching the film. And this is the comparison, because then, the film was, for the first time, same like 300, It's when the film inspires me, because you get carried away. And then you have a complete different genre where the story is still taking part. And I think this is what we should do in media much more, to find ways where we say, okay, maybe we watch a movie, or then the movie develops into a TV series or a graphic novel or a podcast, and it's just to make a huge campaign out of this. You can do this, especially I think during a advertising campaign too.
Yeah. Well, they did that with it's an Australian author named Tom Taylor, who there's a video game series called Injustice, and it's a fighting game like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, and it's about the Joker kills Lois Lane, and Superman then kills the Joker, and then 5 years later, Superman's become this tyrannic, evil version of himself that everyone sort of fears. But then different versions of... There's also a bomb that goes off in Metropolis, and there's stuff like that. But there's basically, after the intro, a 5-year time gap. And Tom Taylor was tasked, hey, we have this 5-year time gap. Do you want to do this 8-issue miniseries in between it, just to fill in some of that timeline? And it ended up being something like... there's like 60 issues, and it went for ages, and then they did Injustice 2, and it's interesting though how the tie-in secondary media product ends up at the same time becoming super massive and popular in its own. But that's a really cool thing about media, I guess, is because you can do this type of thing, and you can be considered an experiment or considered a side project, and then it proliferates and actually becomes something that grabs a lot of people's attention. And frankly, because there's the 5-year time gap and people love these characters so much, they're like, I actually want to know what happens in here.
Yeah,
that's a curiosity.
And that's the big part of having strong characters, is every time you drink and you put your drink away, it looks like from over here that you are hiding the drink behind the underneath the table, like you're in the school,
Yeah, the camera's not wide enough. My table's a little bit messy and there's crap on it. I don't want to pan down, but
yeah, don't do this.
The bottom of I'm still like halfway down to the table from here. And what's really funny about my framing is I've got the camera like pointing slightly down. Given how tall I am, if I become famous and people see me in real life, they're going to be like, damn, you're tall. I'm just going to adjust my seat. There we go.
Perfect. So where did we stop?
Sorry?
Where did we stop? Or what do you want to say?
Oh, I was going to go back to the film festival and kind of expand it. Do you have this same feeling towards other film festivals and other film institutions like the Academy and
no, I mean the Academy, the Oscars in America, that's like pure entertainment.
Yep.
Entertainment of the entertainment, because the people have their stars. The stars are coming on the red carpet, they wave, and then the stars are just on a festival, like on a party sitting, basically. And no one is running around LA or Hollywood and is watching movies, and this is what's all about. So I think the Berlin Festival, the Berlinale, is much more honest, but less entertainment and celebrity like,
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and we need these, but sometimes I'm just, maybe I'm just sick of this whole German thing saying, entertainment is nice, but why didn't we learn anything? This kind of thing, this is what strikes me sometimes. It's always, heavy, and it's always some African or close Middle East themes, where like little kids die and everything. It's really sad, and I know the whole world is not like always fun, but sometimes it's just fun is helping us too.
To further contextualize it to the audience that doesn't know much about film festivals, Berlinale is one of the big five. And the big five is Berlinale, Cannes, Venice, Toronto, and Sundance. And so, in terms of globally, it's also considered the second largest film festival.
But is Sundance really already considered an A festival? Berlinale, it was always like independent more.
Yeah, I think
thought
that's
so.
why I heard this expression only once in terms of the big five, but I think it's the idea that, well, it's whilst it is absolutely a lot more independent and things like that, it's very much still prolific and popular and stuff like that. Got heaps of great films started off at Sundance, for example, that ended up becoming
Yeah.
really massive, and same with Toronto. A goal of mine in my life is actually to go to each of them. And so I've ticked off one of them, and
Yeah,
maybe once this institution gets a little bit bigger, OMFG Media,
of course. Next
maybe
week.
I can get press passes and get in. Because typically these film festivals are very difficult to get in if you're a pedestrian.
Yeah. Usually,
Berlin's the only one that's kind of
Yeah,
accessible.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, otherwise you need to have a press card or anything related to, and that's why, that's in Germany we just level it more for the society, and not always for an elite who has money or certain things. That's why it's okay, but it's after 49 years it's okay now.
Yeah. The reason it's interesting that you mention I mentioned the Academy and the Oscars because a lot of people have issues with how political they are. And I'm actually one of those people who I'm not too much a fan of the Oscars given how they treat certain things. And I guess a big instance, I don't even know if you probably don't know about this, but in uni, I did a class which was called Popular Cultures of Asia. And each week they introduced a screening. So when I did it, you would do the lecture for an hour, and then you'd watch a film or an episode of TV from somewhere. And we did in over 2 weeks Hong Kong and then mainland China. And we watched a mainland China film called Red Shogun from 1986, I want to say. And it was this film about this family that made wine in a small town, and this was around the time of World War II, so Japanese occupied and whatnot. It's a very strange film. It doesn't follow a lot of narrative conventions. I did really enjoy it at certain points, and it was like clearly everyone who made it and was involved had a fun time making it. It won the Golden Bear at Berlinale. For the audience, that is the top jury prize,
Yes.
and considered the top prize at the thing. And it's not a movie that I would have called great. I would say I liked parts of it, but overall, I sort of left it feeling a bit confused and unsure. But then I sort of realized if you look at the timeline, mid to late 80s, and you look at global politics and the economy and what was going on then, China was becoming more and more of a really big player. And so this was, I think, what's considered a soft power move, potentially, and this is a bit conspiracy, to be like, if we get this film to win and we have it win, this is actually a really good cultural acceptance of mainland China, and this is us pushing forward. And this isn't like something I've made up to and whatnot. We see it all the time nowadays in film where they cater to the Chinese audience, as that is 20% of box office incomes now. So they're very there's potential evidence to suggest that it was a political move, but the Oscars are very, very commonly will do political moves like this and be like, oh, this film has this type of new representation. We're going to let it win all these Oscars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's
But I think this is everywhere. Hold on. I think this is everywhere. I was frozen.
That's right.
I mean, put it this way. I think the Berlinale Festival is clear political and has always something at the beginning, and especially looking for the jury, for example, it's always different, it's always new, and this is always where it starts, and you know what you get. And the Oscars, for example, there's more entertainment, but of course there is political issues too, of course, but it's not so obvious, and it's maybe underneath or behind the door or something like that, where, for example, with the Afro-Americans, winning the Oscars, and the first one, or for example, the first foreign Oscars, how many Oscars did any Chinese or any, put it this way, no Iran director will win so easy the Oscars, because they are the biggest components right now.
Well, the two big ones of recent history was Parasite getting Best Picture. Often foreign films in the Academy get Best Foreign Film, and that's a category that a lot of people kind of skip through, or they go get another drink, or they get some food or whatever. But no, they actually had a foreign film win Best Picture. And then most recently, Everything Everywhere All at Once had 3 of its principal cast win awards in additional to 4 other Oscars. And this was the first time that a Chinese woman won lead, and I've got to double check whether it's a Chinese man, but anyway, not many Chinese men have won Best Actor, so Ke Kwan is and I love that movie, by the way. It's actually really great, and I saw it twice in cinemas. I don't often do that.
But political, or put it this way, to have some influence on society always goes, strictly in politics or economics or culture.
Yeah,
this is how you influence. We have now a little debate here in Germany that China is forcing local politicians to influence much more, because they understand that if you want to change the German government, you have to start on the local base to change the local, because if the locals want to do something, then the whole government in Germany has to do something. So that's why there's a lot of rethinking about this whole Chinese, for example, those police stations, undercover police stations from the Chinese, We have them here in Europe, we have them in the USA, and this whole right now, it is kind of, the society is getting much more influenced nowadays, because we are in an open society. The Western world is very open, and that's because of our freedom, I think, we have, and of our opportunities, and then people are just taking this and taking the bad off, or only their opportunities to take them. And especially in culture, it's very, very easy to influence them, Elections for social media, we had that topic, since Donald Trump was elected. And, social media was done more, it's a fun part. It's entertaining, this thing, and suddenly you get influenced by some politicians or some governments, on a way you don't know or you don't understand. For example, I grew up where for example, UK and USA, this is how the Germans learned, this is a democracy. This is where you want to go. This is what you want to do. And this is, you want to basically be not the same, but almost like them,
Yeah.
And this is, when I got influenced in the 70s and 80s by TV, this was all America. Even the UK was not so much, because there was a different accent for us to understand. And we were 100% entertainment by the American films.
I actually kind of want to ask that, because in Europe, I think people have different answers about it. Do you feel some type of patriotic urge to watch German-made content, or is it just American stuff and German subtitles?
What do you mean? Then I didn't. This is what I don't. Say that again, please.
So there's. I remember we have friends who live in the Netherlands, and there's apparently a bit of a social issue, I guess, or call it, where it's a lot of English programming and American programming, and that's a lot of the shows that gets shown on TV. but a lot of people actually want locally made Dutch content, Dutch stories, things like this and that. And there's part of that in Australia, sort of, but Australia has this thing called cultural cringe. But before I get into that, do you sort of get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, we do have this on a different base. For example, you mean the French have this quote that the radio stations have to play a certain amount of French content every day or every hour. We don't have a percentage on this, but put it this way: if you want to produce something in Germany for a TV station or for a cinema, you need to have a German TV station and you need to have German funding. And German funding is only done by a German GmbH, which has to be majority run by Germans. So 5 points already there. If Joe Orchard starts with his production company here, not possible. So there's a protection, but even the look is different. For example, I have a friend. He asked me 15 years ago, Jan, why are the Germans always using different technology when they do film with camera? And I said, what do you mean? We're using the same cameras. No, it looks always different. It looks always cheap. Is
it Munich where they developed ARRI cameras? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what do you mean? German are now the standard for feature-length cinema.
But the framing, the light, and the colors and everything. This is what the Germans. It's not international look. It's not
the mise-en-scene.
It's a German look, and this is what the German TV station wants because it is part of culture. But the problem is that most people don't see this as the main culture, especially in German. We don't have this German thing.
Right.
We do have it, but ask any person in my age if we are proud of being German. This is kind of it's a problem for us.
Okay.
I would say I'm more proud being European than German. And this is what you see in the media, because younger kids and me, we are used to, if we want to be something, we copy always the Americans. And then we look much more American. Right. We are wearing American stuff. We are talking more American than the Australian accent or UK or British accent. It's not cool talking British accent or Australian accent. It's cool to talk American accent in Germany.
Yeah, right. That's damn, that's very interesting. And I kind of feel upset when people say they don't feel as connected to the place that they were born in, because I feel very proud to be Australian and from Australia. But then again, I realize every time I say that there's actually not much to be ashamed of in being Australian. There's, of course, racist cultures and people and stuff like that. And for example, new statistics have come out that homophobia and racism in the AFL, our national sport, is at an all-time high. And I grew up in the PC era, and when I was in high school, there was acceptance, there was pride clubs, there was representation was given to everyone who rightfully deserved it and had been neglected for a very long time. And I also saw there's a big advent of South Asian fast food chains. And so there's a Vietnamese fast food chain that's really popular. There's a thing called China Bar that's now got a few stations, and Korean fried chicken you'll see at every strip mall and in the city and stuff like that. So in terms of representation and equality, especially racism and the opportunity that people have, things are really good in Australia, but there's also a lot of racism and bad things. And also the treatment of the Indigenous people is appalling, especially given that we're right next to New Zealand, where it's very incorporated, it's very open and accepted there. And I can't speak exactly to the issues. I'm not going to assume that it's a perfect society where people of different racial and ethnic groups are treated equally, but compared to Australia, my goodness, we have a lot that we should work on. But but kind of circling back to the Australian media and stuff like that, there's two sides to it. There's a lot of people who kind of get excited for Australian media. Like I mentioned, the film that I saw at the Berlin Film Festival, Berlinale, I felt really excited because all the characters spoke in Australian accents. They could have easily done American accents and not really say where it was set and kind of have it more international like that. No, they grounded it in Australia, which was a really cool thing to see. And the other side to it is the Murdoch family is from Australia, those kangaroos that bounce around America that own Fox and all this other shit. And so there has to, they don't teach it much in my university. They touch on it in high school, but no one really remembers the high school media knowledge necessarily. But I think we have an obligation in Australia to understand power in media because of how powerful the Murdochs are. And if you watch Succession and you think that they're ridiculously powerful, my goodness, they really are. It's mind-blowing.
It is. It's crazy what it put. And this is what we have here. We don't have a Murdoch and we don't have a Berlusconi, but we have Axel Springer. You know, that's our yellow press. And they have a lot of power. And last week there's a novel came out about Still Awake ? Is the title, and it's about a German TV station and about their inner circle power of people and stuff like that. And it's supposed to be basically a copycat of the Axel Springer print because of the yellow press. And just a couple of weeks before the novel came out, some from the CEO of that company, Matthias Döpfner, was leaked his SMS privately, and you know it was big. I mean, Axel Springer, put it this way: Axel Springer was a guy who was during the Second World War. I don't know his role. He was older, but after the Second World War, he was the first guy who says, okay, Israel is very important, and I go to the West Berlin Wall and I build a skyscraper with news, and they are placed every day outside so the East Germans can see that.
Is that TV Tower? No, TV Tower's East.
No,
sorry, my bad.
TV Tower's East. And the Axel Springer Yellow Press, they had so much power and so much because they have the Bild, and Bild is the most selling newspaper, daily newspaper in Germany.
Wow, okay.
Very rich, and a lot of power. And they have they have too much power, they say. You know, they always try to say, listen, it's not possible, because 10 years or 15 years ago, the print people wanted to buy a TV channel like Pro7 Sat.1, private channel, and they said it's not possible. You know, they didn't want to give them so much power. But the CEO is still there, and he's like the SMS, this private SMS leaks were like he's so much fighting versus the East Germans, you know, the Aussies, they always say. And it's really, really like where you say, okay, if this guy is really telling his private opinion, you know, that's the wrong person. You know, that's with so much power. And that's why, because we have the propaganda from the Nazis, we know how easy it is to get head connected in the propaganda.
Yeah.
You know,
damn. That's crazy.
And how much power media has, you know, that's
the other thing. The Murdoch family and their businesses own every single newspaper outlet in the state of Queensland. So that's where Brisbane is and the Gold Coast, and there's a large population. And when elections happen, people are like, hold on, how come Queensland is so liberal and they're voting? And it's like, this is why. Liberal, in Australia means the right leaning party. It's
okay.
something I often have to adjust to when people say liberals. They mean left, but in Australia it means right. It's
Yeah.
just the name of the party, though. It's
Okay, I see. I mean, what I spotted, since Christchurch, I think was the big shooting, right?
yeah.
That there is no in between for the Germans. There is always, like, it doesn't matter if it's Australia or for the USA. It's always yes or no, black or white. And over here, it's not so much. There's always more different. There are more gray zones, and especially and this is happening because there's more talking because we have less weapons. And I think the weapons are a very, very big issue, in the USA. And I'm pretty. You guys have weapons in Australia too, like
banned. No,
America?
so we had a really bad shooting in Port Arthur, which is in Tasmania, and after
Yeah.
that, you could return your weapons to the government. The government would pay you a little bit, but they got rid of guns pretty quickly,
okay.
and that was in the John Howard government. He was the prime minister at the time in that administration, and so that was in
When was it?
the 90s, I think.
Okay.
So it is still rather recent, but Jacinta Ardern's government, in a pretty similar and swift fashion, got rid of the use of. I don't actually know the particular policy that they had, but a lot of those types of weapons were taken away in a similar type of process where the government will give you some money for your weapons.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, and I think this is a big part of it, if you want to try to solve problems, and you have a weapon, that's an easy way out.
It's so crazy that, like, school shootings actually happen because it's so foreign. Like you wouldn't even have to think of that. Or there's the drills that we would do are we would still do lockdown, which is basically jump underneath your desk, and code red, which they changed to code orange. I can't remember why, but that was basically leave your classroom and stand on an oval while they mark the roll. And they make sure everyone's there. But it was goodness. This has gone a bit dark. Can we change it? A lighthearted idea that I think we should do.
Definitely.
In case we have American audiences or anything like that listening, can we suggest German and Australian shows/films to watch? Do you know any German things that people should check out? I know a couple Australians. I can list them off whilst you think about it, or...
But for the Australians, it's very tough because there's just German then, there's not even undertitle in English.
Oh, yeah, true. Well, I'll tell you guys this. Talk to Me, which is what I saw at Berlinale, that comes out soon. I do recommend watching that. Really unique horror film. Quite a lot of fun there. Another horror film that I suggest is Wolf Creek. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's about backpackers in the outback, and this serial killer kills them. And it is...
In Australia.
In Australia. It's fucking terrifying, and the film is about the dark side of Australia. If you Google it now, you're going to see that Rotten Tomatoes has it at like 50%, and IMDb has it at 6 or something like that out of 10. But it is effectively creepy and weird and horrific at a lot of points. And the final one I'll mention is Gallipoli. This is a big personal one to a lot of people. We're actually recording this on Anzac Day, which is an Australian war holiday.
Do you have bank holiday, right, today?
No, it's on a bank holiday. It's a war memorial holiday.
Oh, okay.
And ANZAC stands for Australia New Zealand Army Corps. And a lot of the Anzac soldiers were sent to Gallipoli, which was a coast in now Turkey. Back then it was the Ottoman Empire. And it was a really big loss in Australian. It was a really bad battle. And what would happen is it was a really steep cliff. So the Turkish knew and they could see everything. The moon would also set right at the horizon of the river. and so a really big light would shine in, and they could see all the boats coming in, and it was a really bad tactical thing. And Gallipoli is a film directed by Peter Weir, who it also it follows two Australians as they go to war in World War One, and that's really good. Peter Weir went on to direct The Truman Show, a lot of people really like that film, and if you like that sort of, it's not very stylistically they're very different, so it shows how talented of a director Peter Weir is. But I would recommend those as Australian content to watch if you want to get a bit familiar, and if you want to watch a comedy that's a bit more lighthearted, Muriel's Wedding is great with
Which
Toni
wedding?
Collette. Muriel's Wedding. Muriel, my accent sounds really goofy, but Toni Collette, who was in Hereditary and a few other things. I'm going to quickly...
I mean, I can always suggest Das Boot.
Das Boot?
You know the film Das Boot?
I think I do know it, actually.
You probably stumble across in film history if you have this, Das Boot. It's about a German submarine in the Second World War. And the funny thing is, it's from Wolfgang Petersen, I think is called the director. And back then, it was shot in the 80s. It used to showcase young German soldiers going into the war in submarines. The funny thing is that I'm pretty sure 90% of the cast, of the main cast, got, after this film, super successful in Germany.
Yeah.
And there's even Herbert Grönemeyer a part of it, and Herbert Grönemeyer became, after this, he always was a singer, and he was an actor, but then he got very successful as a singer. Herbert Grönemeyer as a young guy too. And this one I can suggest.
Very
Definitely.
nice. I know a German thing I can suggest.
What?
Netflix. The highest rated Netflix show is a German series. Would you like to guess what it is?
How to get drugs fast online or something.
I remember that coming out and you telling me to watch it. No, Dark.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I should have said that. Dark. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Dark is very successful in Germany.
Yeah.
I tried to watch it. I was the first 2 or 3 episodes. I didn't get into it, I have to say.
Yeah, it is very niche. I would describe it as a Christopher Nolan type series that uses time travel. And it's very grounded in a lot of its principles. But
Dark is a good example. Sorry to interrupt you. Dark is a good example because it's not looking German for the Germans. And that's what Germans like.
Okay, yeah.
Because if you want to watch something German, all you need to do is tune in every Sunday at 8 p.m. on the ARD. It's our first station, so to speak. And there you have the Tatort. Tatort is the place of crime, so to speak. And it's always about, because we are federal in Germany, and every week it's a different city, and with different cops, and they always look for, there's always one murder, and at the end of the film, it's a 90-minute film, I think, or 60-something, they catch the murder, of course, but...
like an NCIS type show.
Sorry?
Like NCIS?
NCIS, what's the NCIS?
It's the same type of thing you're describing. It's, a criminal of the week that they go and catch.
Yeah. And this is very German, and this looks very German. It's edited very German, and for example, the intro has only the eyes of a guy. This never changed, and it's still the same like in the 80s when they started the show.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Das Boot und Tatort.
The reason I say to the audience to watch Australian and German is I think you learn more about media watching international things. you will see Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola cite all sorts of international films, especially Japanese films like The Seven Samurai, and all sorts of other things. The Star Wars influences that comes from them, it's just mind-blowing and things like that. So to the audiences, I would suggest trying every now and then watching something foreign, at least to your country. It can be English-speaking Australian, which is cool and fine and whatever, or try watching something in a different language. Stories are all the same, okay? Characters have problems and they need to get over the problems. There's conflict.
Yeah, exactly. While you're talking, there's one film got very successful, shot in the 90s, Run Lola Run.
Oh, I've heard of this title.
Yes, and the funny thing is, in my opinion, I think the camera is very German.
Okay.
It looks very German. The storytelling is international. And I think that's the success of the film internationally wise, in Germany too. And that's maybe to get the link from last episode. This is international. This is the key to successful storytelling, international.
Gotcha.
For Germans, for sure.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah.
We both have to go to different things. This is a bit of a shorter episode, but I'm going to end it with surprising Jan with something. I'm going back to Berlin soon for 4 days for a holiday. So we'll try and schedule in a live recording of a podcast where it's two of us sitting next to each other and whatnot. I'm going with a friend, so unfortunately he's going to have to be the camera operator, but I'll buy him lunch or something like that. But we'll figure out the scheduling there. And it's also going to become a bit of a headache because I'm going to be looking to upload podcast episodes whilst I'm overseas doing different things, partying across Europe. So
when are you planning to come?
I'll be in mid-June. And so I think I'll be in Berlin 19th to the 23rd.
Of June.
It's midweek.
Okay. Yeah. I should be here in June. And because we are aiming for summer holidays in August. To do, and you want to do the European railway?
Yeah, so we're doing Greece, Krakow, and then Berlin. All the party destinations that Australians go to, and then my friend's going back, and my parents will be flying up at a different time. My dad has a conference, and so I'll be going to Barcelona and Venice, nice. And that'll be right after I graduate university as well, and so it's a bit of a graduation trip / holiday and stuff like that. Nice. But I'll do an hour of work recording a podcast with you.
We have to. Maybe we can sneak into the old office of the movie.
Should we say the name of the company that we worked for? I can bleep that out. You just did? I can bleep it out if we feel like it's something that we shouldn't say.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We can do this.
Yeah. We should see if we can get I'll bleep out their name on the pod. I think that would actually be interesting because if we want to look at different avenues of production and producing, a VFX supervisor will be a very interesting person to have on. But we do have ideas for guests. We're talking about them. I'm going to reach out soon to a few and see but we actually, Jan and I need to find a regular time to record this. So
and we need to have a frame. How did Saul doing? How is Saul doing?
Saul's doing well. I think I sent you the recent drafts. What you're seeing now is the overlay, is the finished product, of course. But they're looking pretty good. If you have any notes, we can pass on to her.
Definitely. And my idea is maybe we can ask our huge audience all over the world for our podcast name.
It's already going to be released by the time we do this. And so I think we're already going to have a name.
We need a name. This is our name.
Yeah, we need a name. Do you know what I'll do? I'll just post this clip and I'll be like, we need a name. And I'll talk more about it.
Maybe there's something coming out.
I'll make a trailer.
You can post our suggestions, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I've used ChatGPT and other AIs, and they're not coming up with good ones. Like the producer pundits, and it's like that doesn't roll off the tongue at all. Like
producers pundits. What is
like
this?
a pundit is like it's like an insult, but it's sort of like it's not good. That's the point.
Okay.
Anyway, Jan, it's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, Joe, and all the best. All the best to you. Finish your beer. How is it tasting?
It's empty. It's very empty. It was all right. I'll do something else next time. You can have your morning drink, and I'll have my evening drink. Take care,
Joe,
guys.
talk to you later.
See you around. Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao.